Okay, so to get started with our planter pot design, we're going to need some tools. So let's talk about the software tools and the hardware tools. Now, the hardware tools we're going to be using, this is a bamboo tablet. It is quite dated. It was given to me a long time ago, but it is still kicking just fine. And I have my pen here for this tablet. And as for the software tools, we are going to be using Microsoft OneNote, one of my favorite applications. So let's open that now. There we go. And this is OneNote. So let's get going. Now, the first thing we want to do is I like to get my images, my reference images or images of concepts that I love, so that I can start coming up with an idea, right? So I gathered some images and I'm just going to pull that up now. And I'm going to just drag those images over now. Here we go. And this is another one. Now, these photos I actually got from Pinterest. So, I just looked around for concepts that I like. There and there and there. All right, there we go. All right, so OneNote, it's a note-taking application, so I can put images around or I can sketch. So I'm gonna kind of use this as my mood board so that to get my ideas out. Now, each one of these has something that I think is really interesting, right? So I want to go over them real quickly. So let me put these like this. So this first one here is not really a planter, but it looks pretty interesting. I love the architectural element, and I have a architectural background, so that's something that I definitely want to include, right? So I'm gonna just say architecture there. So that's a concept. I love the idea for this one here. For this second concept, I really like this kind of inner and outer skin, right? So I would love to use that concept there. All right, now if I look over here, I really love these elements here. They kind of remind me of louvers, right? So I want to use that one. And these two are kind of similar, but I love the transition that happens here in this one, right? So I think that is pretty cool. And this one here, that same concept of the inner and outer skin, this is a different take on it, but I really think that one is interesting there, right? So those are the concepts that I think I want to use in the design that I'm going to create. So at the end of the day, I want to create something that includes some elements of architectural design, whether it's the form or something interesting. The element of let's just call it the under skin, right? Where you have this idea of different layers of a skin, or maybe I should call it layered skin. This idea of louvers, right? And somehow to put these together to create an interesting vase. All right. Now, one of the great things about OneNote is that I can use features to help me draw a straight line along with sketching. So that is just great. Then let's see, we have the existing vase, which is something like this, something like that. We have some reference images, so let's see what that looks like. All right, so let's take a look on what the existing element looks like. All right, so this is it. We can rotate this way. There we go. All right, and here is another view here. Let's also rotate this. Let's put that there. So we can get an idea of the rough shape, right? as a reference, we could even use this to kind of trace what it's like. So I put there, and I'll just trace one edge like that, and I'll trace maybe one edge like this, and then I go straight across. That's good enough. All right, now I think it's a little taller, so I'm just going to stretch this down. All right, so I think this is the rough shape that we are working with. All right. All right. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to change this to maybe like a white color. Let's go here and let's choose a white. Okay, one of the first things we want to try and do is I'm going to change this to a white color because I can see that a little better. All right. Now, this is the original vase, so I'm going to move this over like this. And the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to try to get that double skin concept that we were speaking about. So, you know, maybe there is an outer kind of skin, something like that. And let me go for the eraser. The great thing about this is that I can not only erase a line, but I can erase a part of a line. So like this. So that is that inner skin element there. Maybe I'm just kind of doing it freestyle, so I'm not really sure. Or maybe that element could, maybe this is the inner skin here and I can carve out another skin. So for example, what about that? And then I'm gonna erase this line here. All right, I think we're getting somewhere. Let's make that straight. Right, so it's almost like you have different layers for the pot. All right, now I think down here we can somehow make this, like we can cut a hole here. So I'm gonna, so this would be like a hole. Let's see if I can do that better. Yeah, then I'm thinking that I'm not liking this separation here. I'm not sure, so I'm gonna copy this and maybe play with it some more. So we have two halves here and we need some, I think we need to get rid of here. So I'm going to, let's get rid of that. Maybe this needs to be straight. Okay. And actually, maybe we need to remove this guy here. So then this becomes like a negative space in this area here. So it's almost like a part of the pot is gone. So that might be interesting. And then we have these two surfaces here. So maybe this surface is different than that surface. So let's try and, so we stop this surface here. Then this surface here separates these two elements. Maybe we can actually move this guy here. Let's get rid of this. Actually, let's use a different eraser. There we go. And let's extend this down. So it's definitely separated these two elements here. And then we can continue this like that. Then we could probably think of this as a cantilever, and then we can actually support this with some columns. Let's do another one. Then we need to change these two materials. So I'm thinking maybe this material here is of a louvered kind of a surface, which is kind of like our concept. And then here will be flat. So this continues all the way down, but it's two different materials that's separated by this, right? I guess this is starting to look like a building now, which is okay. Then for the base, we definitely need a somewhat of a plinth, and we can actually add steps. Yeah, I think I'm liking that. It's kind of looking like a architectural model, I guess. All right, so let us copy this. And actually, let's move all of these down. Then I'm gonna copy this one more time. So maybe this is the final version. I'm thinking, because this is looking so much like a building, maybe we can have some interesting cutouts and we can actually put them, you know, like random. Maybe another one. And then, well, let's put this part in a different color. All right. I think that's looking pretty interesting. Now, of course, this is a two-dimensional sketch. So, I mean, we still have to put them in a kind of in a 3D form, right? But I do think that we have the makings of a good concept. When we put this in 3D, then we'll have to figure out what happens on all four sides, because obviously this is just designing using the elevation as a guiding light. But I think at this point I'm not going to develop it anymore in 2D. We're going to switch over and do this in 3D. Okay, so now that we have the concept all done, we now need to create a 3D replica of this. Now, for this, we're going to use 3D Studio Max. So let's put this here. So what we need to do is we need to get the concept from here and we need to build that out into 3ds Max. Then from 3ds Max, we will go and 3D print the model. Now, how are we going to get this sketch into Max? Well, what we'll do, we'll use the sketch as a reference and then we'll use that to generate the model. And to do that, we're going to use one of my favorite programs. It's called PureRef. It's open source, so you can download it with ease. So let me open PureRef now. This is what it looks like. Now, what PureRef is, it's essentially a very robust way of viewing reference images that you want to use to create your 3D models, right? So, for example, we were using OneNote, and OneNote is great for making concept sketches, recording, especially for notes, keeping notes organized. We use this to transform our reference images into a reference sketch. Now we need to transform the reference sketch into a 3D model. Now, we're going to use PureRef. I'm going to just zoom in here, and what we're going to do is I'm going to take a screenshot. There we go. And I'm going to just Control V to paste the screenshot here. So this is a screenshot now in PureRef, right? And as I said, it's a place that you can put your reference images, right? So for example, let's say that I want, let's say this reference image here. I'm going to paste it. I'll paste that over there, and I'll copy this one and I'll paste it here. So it's a great way to just organize all of your reference files that you want to use to do your 3D model, right? I think I'll just take this one and this one. Okay, there you go. But of course, this is what we created. Now, one of the beautiful things about PureRef is its ability to act as a kind of tracing paper, right? So you can actually configure the application to act as an overlay while you model in the background. Now to do this, we're going to right click and we're going to go into settings. And then when we go into settings, we can look for appearance and we're going to change it to glass. And what that will do, it will let the PureRef application window disappear. So it's still here. I can still move it around, but notice that the background is no longer there. Now back in Studio Max, before I switch over, I'm going to click this little pin here and this will keep PureRef always on top. So I can now go in the background and use 3ds Max while I have PureRef on top. All right. So while I have that there, I'm going to just switch to a single view. So now you can kind of see where this actually feels like it's sitting on top of my 3ds Max. Now it's a little tricky because I can't see where the window begins. Like you can kind of see the little edge there. If I turn off grid in Max there, you can see where the grid is. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave this like that pretty much. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold Control Alt Shift and left click and hold and move the mouse from left to right. Now this way I can set the transparency of the image. So I want to make it slightly transparent, right? So for example, this, I have Max in the background, and if I draw a box with Studio Max, like you can see the box in the background, but you can also see my reference image on top, which is really, really awesome. Okay, so I still do have an issue though. So I need to scale the object in the background to the actual size of the model. So I'm going to move PureRef over to the side for just a minute. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to establish some sizes. Now, the main size that I need to remember is going to be the inside cavity where the plant will go. I need to ensure that that is accurate, right? And that is a real world scale. So firstly, I'm going to set up my scale in Max. So I'm going to go to unit setup, and it's set to centimeters for my system units. So that is fine. Then I'm going to set my display units to metric, and I'll put that in. All right. Now I'm going to draw a rectangular shape here, and this rectangular shape will represent the opening in the top of the planter pot. Now I know that that opening, I'm going to go to modify, and I know that that opening is 105 millimeters by 105. So this represents the actual opening in the pot. Now, as long as I don't make anything intersect with this opening, it should be fine, right? So I can, for example, using this assumption, I can convert this to an editable spline. Then I can select this line here, and I can now do an outline. So let's make it exactly. So I'm going to let this outline be 10 millimeters, actually. Is it 10? Yeah, -10 actually. There we go. All right. So this would be now the opening of the planter. And now I'm going to extrude this by adding an extrude modifier. And let's extrude it by a negative value. So let's go to -100 millimeters. All right. So that's it. So this is just representing the planter pot, which is good enough. So I'm going to take a front view. So this is a wireframe of the front. I'm going to just change the color so we can see it a little better. So we're going to use a nice yellow. All right, so it's pretty clear. All right. Now what we're going to do is we're going to grab PureRef here, and we're going to put this over to the side, maybe like that. So we're going to put PureRef pretty much in where our viewport is, and we're going to line it up with our actual viewport. Now we're going to use this as a reference, so I'm going to make my viewport a little larger. So let's do that now. There we go. Okay, now let's see if I can find, okay, there we go. All right, now in order for the ratios to be the same, the ratio of the PureRef and the ratio of the viewport, what I want to do is I want to turn on show safe frames. There we go. So this is the frame that we'll be operating in, and this is the frame that we're going to use as the reference for PureRef's frame. I know that sounds confusing, right? But so now I'm making PureRef the exact size of our viewport frame, and now I'm gonna zoom into this to make this about this big. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click and say mode, and I'm going to switch this to transparent mouse, and I'll get this message that says when I go to transparent mouse, I will no longer be able to scale the PureRef window. So when I click that, now I'm using 3ds Max, but it's below PureRef. That's the key thing to remember. So I can't edit PureRef because it's like frozen and it's semi-transparent. So with that said, I can now use this to trace my sketch. All right, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to scale it, and I'm probably going to go to a perspective mode. Let me see. Right, just to make sure that it's aligned and it looks good. Now, while we're here in 3ds Max, we can see that the sizes are pretty much aligned, and I just need to translate the sketch that I did in the 3D Max environment so that I can use it as a guide, so that when what I model is similar to the sketch, right? So we did have a base that's somewhere down here, so I'm going to just do this in 2D. So I'm going to draw the base here. Now this doesn't have to be exact. I just need a representation so that I can be confident that it will look like my initial sketch. So I'm going to put a box there. I'm going to go to rotate. Oops. And I'm going to turn on the rotate snap. Let's make it 10 degrees. It's not exact, but I want to snap it to an actual degree just to be certain. Now these are the sides of the cube here. So what I want to do is I'm going to choose maybe the arc tool. Let's try that. I'm going to draw this here. That's good enough. Then I'm going to draw another line here and here. And then I'm going to draw another line here. All right. And then I want some lines representing what we did for these things here. So I'm actually going to draw a line straight up. And then I'm going to copy this. Now, the reason I'm copying it is because I want it to be at a specific angle. So it looks like about 30. And I'm going to copy this again, make that about 30. All right. Well, then we had some windows. We'll probably make these rectangle squares. So I'm going to copy this maybe here. I don't have to do it exactly. Maybe I can start to change it up a little bit more. All right. So what we have done is interpreted the major lines in our sketch, right? So if I switch to perspective mode, and I'm going to minimize PureF. So I've kind of translated my sketch here. Let me put this behind, put it back in front. And let's make this a different, let's make all of these colors more favorable. So we'll make them all yellow. All right. Now this is where the fun begins. We have successfully translated our sketch from the 2D sketch world into the 3D sketch world, but it's still a guide. Like these are just here to guide us so that when we are creating the 3D, we'll be able to not veer too far off from what we originally came up with. Now, for reference, we can always open PureF and just match back our sketch to what we have in PureF. But we're not going to do that yet. We have enough to start creating our model. So let's do that. Now, the other thing that we need to take into consideration is that we actually know the height of the pot, and we know it's 145 millimeters. So what we're going to do to measure that, we're going to go to create, and then we're going to go over to helpers, and then we're going to go to tape. And what we're going to do is, before we go to tape, let's go over to snap. So we're going to turn on snaps. We're going to right click to bring up the snap settings, and we are going to enable grid points, turn off vertex. So now we can snap to these grid points. Now, the only reason I'm doing this is when we're on tape, we're going to say specify length, and I'm going to specify the length to be 145 millimeters. So now when I click, let's do it over here and drag, release. So now where this green line ends is where is 145 millimeters. Now, we don't really have to worry about the length of the pot because we can make it as pretty much as tall as we want, but we want to have an idea of what the original length is. So just for reference, we're going to go to create a shape, and we're going to create a line, and we're just going to eyeball this line, really. So pretty much this is where the bottom of the pot is if the top of the pot is up here. Now, to have that reference, I'm just going to include the extrude. So I'm going to make the extrude minus 145. And there we go. Now let's look on this in 3D. Now, as you can see, this is the rough height and opening of the pot. Of course, the pot tapers in. Now, we don't have to make it taper in that curve of the original pot. Doesn't matter because we are basically going to redesign this, right? So it is totally up to us to do whatever we would like. All right. Now we can start to model because we have these guides. Now, what we're going to do is I am going to make the thickness of the pot very large. So I'm going to right click this and go to convert this to an editable poly, or actually I won't convert it. I will add editable poly as a modifier instead. I may convert it later. It depends. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to select these guys here and I'm going to make it much larger. So I'm going to use a scale. Now I know I can make it this large because I can see that according to my concept sketch, this and the proportions, this is how small the existing opening is, and this is how wide I made, you know, based on the concept sketch. So I'm gonna move this all the way to the bottom and I'm gonna snap it. I'm gonna right click snaps and say snap to vertex, turn off grid points and snap it there. All right, so I have the height of my box all set. Let's move it back here so we can still see the sketch in the foreground. Let's change this from, let's change it to maybe like a gray, or actually not a gray, but there we go. Let's make a custom color and let's make it very dark. There we go. So we can see the sketch on top of that. Let's turn off the grid by pressing G. So there goes the pot. Now, obviously the pot tapers in and we don't have to let this opening come all the way down. So we are going to change that actually. So let's go to editable poly here and I'm going to delete the base here and this inner edge here and move this up. So this is basically inside the box and I'm going to use the cap option. So now the box has a bottom that's right here. Then for these guy here, I'm going to also cap that in. So now this is what we have. So if I go to wireframe, you can see where we have the inside and the outside. All right, let's go to front view again. And while we're in front view, we're going to scale this down. So we know that this is the rough taper of our design, right? Because we did have it taper. Now let's go back to pure ref, right? And we're going to lock pure ref again. So we're going to go transparent mouse. Okay. All right. Now we're in max. So we can always come back here and check. I need to go to zoom it slowly. Right. So we can always come back here and check to make sure that what we are drawing is in line with our concept, right? So here is the top. Now, obviously you can see where we did this cut down of the outer skin and the inner skin. So we can always come back here and check to see that what we're drawing lines up with our original vision, right? And we can overlay what our vision is on top of accurate measurements, which is really cool. Now, the next thing we're going to do is let's go to perspective mode and we're going to minimize pure ref. And here is the box here. So what we need to, let's change the color of this box so that we can see it. Right. So what we need to do now is model, let's just say, the shape of the pot. All right. And to do that, we're going to select all the sides here. We're going to enable window crossing so we can select all 4 sides. And we're going to enable clay mode. There we go. Makes it easier to model because we can see the points better. We're going to go to connect and we're going to do about 3, maybe 4. Let's do 4 connection points. I'm going to go back to perspective and we're going to select these points here and we're going to scale them. So what we're actually doing, let me give you an idea, show you what we're doing. What we're actually doing is we are scaling these points to match this curve. Select this point here and then we'll scale it. Select this point here and then we scale it. All right. Now the difference is that we want to do this in a front perspective or front elevation mode so that we can get it to be more precise. We ended up changing this one. Okay, so let me undo that. Okay, good. All right. That gives us the general shape of our pot. And this is the shape that will be cut out from the inside. So now we need to start to put in these detail elements, right? So first, let's cut this shape out of the pot that goes like this. And there are some questions that we need to answer because when we created this sketch, we created it in a 2D view. But of course, this is a 3D view. So now we're going to answer the question of what happens on the other side of the pot, you know? So let's go. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to actually create a shape to use as a subtraction shape. There we go. I'm going to extrude this. And this is what we'll use to subtract the shape outside the pot, right? So we're going to select this pot here and then firstly, let's make a backup of this pot. So we're going to create a new layer. We're going to duplicate this pot and put it on a new layer and call it PAK for backup. So just in case we subtract it and we needed to get it back. So, all right, now to subtract, we're going to create geometry and we're going to create a compound shape. And we can either use Boolean or Pro Boolean. So let's try the regular Boolean tool and subtract. Oops, that was intersect actually. So we need to go to subtract. There we go. Now we can still move this box around actually. All right, so we can still edit the shape. Maybe this could actually be a part of the shape. That might be interesting rather than cutting the entire box out. So maybe that would be interesting. I don't know. Let's see. Okay, next, let's cut this element. Let's create this element here. So this is pretty straightforward. We could actually just extrude this. And we could decide to extrude it part way. Or all the way through like that. I think it's looking more like part way is working better. So it gives it more interest. Maybe we can do something to this side after. Now, one of the first things we want to do before we go any further is we need to kind of get ourselves organized. So let's name this main pot. All right. So we can call this element, let's call it cantilever. All right. There we go. Now, one of the cool things with this mode of subtraction is that if I open the drop-down box, you see all of the lines that are a part of the model. Okay, wait, before we go further, let's get even more organized. Let's select these lines and let's put them on a layer and let's call this concept reference lines so we can turn them on and off. Let's also put this on that layer too. And let's put this on that layer as well. Good. Now we have main pot. We also have a layer called cantilever, and then we have this which is called line 007. And what this is, if I turn this on, this is actually the element that we use to subtract, right? Which is pretty cool. Now what's interesting is that we can still manipulate this. So for example, if I edit the subtraction, notice that it's actually it's like a live subtraction of the model. So if I hide this, if I change this and hide this again, you will see that it has been edited, which is pretty cool, right? So let's call this, let's put sub-01. So I know this is a subtraction. I'm going to put this on its own layer and call it track. There. So now I can turn the layer on and off. Or even better, I can go into the layer properties and I can say to make this layer display in the viewport as wireframe. Then I'm going to now go into the object itself, right click and go to properties. And then I'm going to say, let the object display properties be based on the layer by layer. So I'm going to choose OK. So now I can see what is being subtracted and I can even edit it and I can see the polygons change in real time. So that is also pretty cool. All right. Now let's look at the other elements that we have in our sketch. So if I bring up PureRef, now we do have this element here around the back. Okay. That is this section here with the circle. So let's take a look on that area. So we want to have that right here. Now, what we can do, let's go to create and we're going to create a cylinder. But before we choose that, we're going to hit this option here that says auto grid. And that's going to allow us to create the cylinder using this as a surface. There we go. That's good. And we're going to move that in place. So we're just going to put it somewhere about here. Then we're going to increase the radius. Then of course we're going to subtract this. But what we're going to do is we're going to just add this subtraction. Okay, wait, let's name it first. So, well, it's okay. The name is fine. We're just going to add this subtraction here. So we're going to say add. We want to add a subtract and we're going to add that. Pretty cool. And we're also going to make it visible. And of course, we're going to right click and go to properties and make it display based on the layer display properties, which means that it will now be transparent. And of course, we can still move this around. Now, well, we can't move it using the transform. We have to move it using the parameters. So we can, if we edit the parameters, like the radius, then it will edit the subtractions in real time, but we can't move it. All right, now let's create another one. We're just kind of doing it freestyle now. So I'm going to create a box. I'm going to create that box like about here. That's actually quite lean. All right, because I need to hide this. So let's turn this layer off. I'm going to create the box on this surface here. So I'm going to say use the default layer and I'm going to create a box here. Let's make this box bigger, something like this, I guess. Let's give it an angle. 10 degrees is what we used. All right, so we're going to also add this box. Let's put it on the subtractions layer and let us go ahead and make it display as a wireframe. Then we're going to add this here. All right, so now we have this area subtracted here. So now we need to kind of decide, you know, we are creating this side, but we need to decide what's going to happen for the rest of this shape here. Well, let's carve out the top part first before we start to do any designing. Let's get back PureRef up. And of course, we are going to go to mouse mode. So this is where we're at now. Right. So we need to subtract this section here up top. So let's go ahead and do that now. So what this area is, it's going to be all of this section here. We need to cut away, and we're going to do it all the way around here. So we're going to cut away this outer area. So I think the best way to do that, we could use a shape. Yeah, let's just do it freehand. All right, we're going to make this aligned now. So we're going to use our snap tool and we're going to snap to vertex. So we're going to ensure that this is aligned there. And we're going to ensure that these are aligned here. So we know that these are aligned. Then how thick do we want to make these walls actually? Well, I am going to, let's say we make it like if we put it here and then we use our move or transform typing tool. So I'm going to move along the X. So this is 10 millimeters. That's 15. So let's say about 15. So I'm going to go negative 15 here. I'm going to do the same here. Let me get these in line first. here, I'm going to go negative 15 on the X. All right, then we're going to go ahead and extrude. We're going to put this by layer, and then we're going to add this to the subtractions layer, and then we're going to add this to our subtraction list. Then we're going to move this down. That was a problem. If you remember, we can't physically move it. So let's go back here. It was already added, but we can't move it. So we have to use the, there we go. We have to use the parameters to move, not the transform. So this will give us that inner edge that we wanted to achieve here, right? But this should be aligned here. Now, we could edit the line. Let's see, the original line like this, and then we would make it in line with here like that. I think this was not so low. I think this was actually a bit higher. Let's go back to a front view and let's turn on like pure ref. Yeah, so definitely this was a bit higher. So let's go to mouse mode. Let's move this in place. Then let's see if we can, I think this is okay here, but the extrusion needs to come up some more like that. There we go. I think that is closer to what we had in the concept. So if we take a look here, so this is on this side here, but actually this element is supposed to, I see the problem. So all of this is supposed to be different. This area here is supposed to protrude, and then all of this area here is supposed to be in the background to flip this shape here. So we're going to go back to when it was a line, and let's see if we can do this. I'm going to select these guys and we're going to move it here, move that there, then move the whole thing like this here. We do need to get this to be the same 15. Now this element is shaved all the way down, so we're going to increase that all the way down to like here. Then we need to edit the line, so we're going to select these lines here, and we need to line these up with these. There we go. Then we also need to shave down this side here, so we could duplicate this and just rotate it 180 and move it. We could let both of them intersect. All right, and this one we're just gonna add this to this and say we're gonna add another subtraction. There are a lot of subtractions here. Oh, we need to make this a subtract, and let's turn it on. Then we're gonna let this come all the way up like that. Oh, we need to align them actually, so let's go back to line. This here. If we really wanted to, we could actually change this one here to be even skinnier, you know, so it will be a little bit more interesting, I guess. I'll leave that for now. All right, so if I turn off all the subtractions, this is the interesting shape that we have for this element here. Now we still need to determine what's going to happen to this side. Now this needs to be aligned. All right, so now we need to put these louvered elements here, and I think what we're going to do is we're going to put these elements like possibly in these areas all along here, and we may stop somewhere. Maybe we stop about here. So we'll add these louvered elements here, and then maybe we'll cut this short about right here, so that we can have like a clear line where this material stops, and that will represent that material there. All right, so let's see how we can do that. Now we do have this element here that should not go all the way through, so this should be about there. Not sure if it should line up with this side here. Maybe. Let's see if what that looks like. Yeah, so I think it should be something like that. So it's only this side that's cut. Then this element here, this is looking a little weird here, so we might cut this short to about right here, but I would want it to overlap a little bit, so like that. And at the back, we could allow this element to now be aligned with this element here. So what we could do is add an editable poly. And what we'll do is we'll use the connect tool, and we will connect, we'll slide it down. So we take the extrude right down to this point here. Then we cut away these excess polygons. So now we have this at a different place as from this, which I think is nice. Now we need to cut these fins along this edge here. So we'll have a line that runs along here. And we want these fins to come in, so on the X about so we're going to make the fins along this edge here and along this edge here. Now to make the fins, we could use, let's do it flat. So let's use a rectangle. Do we have auto grid on? Yes, we do, but we need to turn off this area here. Right. Actually, I need to put this element here on a different layer. There we go. And let's activate that layer. All right, so this is our fins, and we want to make the fins be maybe about 5 millimeters wide. Yeah. And the length doesn't matter because we're gonna be subtracting. So now we're gonna use the snap tool and align it there. And then I think I'm gonna move it to this end here. And then I'm gonna copy this, and we're gonna copy it. Well, we could, I think we can close ref for a while, and we're going to use the array tool, and we're going to, for this array tool, we need to go in the y-axis, so it's along here. 10 copies, maybe that's okay, and we're going to do it about 10 millimeters. Let's preview it, and you can see it in the background. That's what it looks like. All right, we're going to make it a copy, and then we're going to say okay. Now the reason we're going to make it a copy is because we are actually going to attach these. Let's convert this to an editable. All right, so we're going to pretty much extrude these down and use it to do the cuts. I think we can get rid of this last one here. Let's turn that into an editable spline. Let's delete that last one. And we can pretty much delete these. And then we're going to add them to the subtraction. A lot of subtractions with this shape here. I don't know how I feel about this piece here. Okay, so this we need to say by layer, and then we're going to go back into the edit spline, and I'm just going to move this down. Okay, to fix that I would have to join these together, so I would have to delete these two guys here, and then I would have to connect that should be correct. This is the problem. Okay, yeah, I need to weld this together. I don't know. I think this is better. We shouldn't go all the way down here, so we need to edit that. It's a little funny because this is slant, so we would have to add a edit poly to this subtraction. All right, those fins are looking pretty good. All right, now for this side, now we didn't really design what happens on this side, so I think we're just gonna play it by ear and see what happens. Okay, let's work on the base to see what happens with the base. All right, let's go back to our sketch. So we're gonna want to have this on a base here. So let's make that up. I'm gonna go with a box. Based on our sketch, yeah, we had the steps. This actually comes out to this part here, so I think it should be like there, maybe even a little bit more, maybe like that. And let's see, what can we do with this area? Well, we could have steps all around the edges, like here, and then like so, and then maybe have a ramp that goes up like that. So the ramp would go up like that, something like that. I don't know. I think that would look kind of like our sketch. So let's try it out. So we need to choose edge, and we need to do some cutting here. So maybe 3 might be too much, but let's see. Let's do the same for here. We're gonna go to connect, and we're gonna try and estimate this. We're gonna put one here, I think. I keep saying I think because I'm just making this up as I go along. To get the third step, I think we have to go a bit longer, like here. Wow, this is getting kind of big. It's getting out of hand, but okay. It's supposed to look wild and crazy because we want it to be part of our imagination. We want to make it very potent with imagination, I guess we could say. All right, so I think those are the steps. So let's see what we can do. Let's start from the lower version, I think. Yeah, let's start from the lowest ones. And we're gonna do an inverse extrude. I know it's gonna be weird, but bear with me. Right, those are our steps. Now let's work out the ramp. I think the ramp is going to be in here, so we need one more cut, And then we can put this one like here maybe, and then we need another cut here. So we could stop the ramp maybe about here. Yeah, we could stop it about there. So all of here will be our ramp. So we're going to actually delete these that we just created. Let's leave the last one. I think we're going to delete that. Let's see. We're going to bridge that. Yeah, we have a little funny area here, but I think we can connect these. Those look pretty okay. Here, not so much. I think we're gonna have to get rid of these here. Oh, this is a lot of just managing our polygons. We can just fill this hole here. We can just cap that hole. This one now is a little bit more tricky because it goes on both sides. I don't think the cap hole will work. Nah, it's gonna be funny. So we're gonna have to cap one side first. I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use this area as a kind of a transition area for the now this area here, we're gonna need the pot to be longer, so we're gonna have to go to the original pot. I think we're getting this here because that is where one of the shapes, yeah, this shape here. Let's make it a editable. Let's add an edit poly modifier to it. And we're gonna select the bottom and choose local so we can cut out that bottom part there. Man, I don't know what we're doing, but we are doing something. Okay. All right, let's do something with this part here. I don't know. I think I'm grasping for straws at this point, but let's do something like some more boxes. So we're gonna add some boxes, I think. Yeah, we'll add a version of this so we can make it the same. I don't know. I don't know. I swear. I'm just making it up. I'm just making it up as I go. All right. So don't judge me. Right. This is something, quite something. I wonder how deep we can make this thing here. Let's go to edit poly. Let's see. Okay, we can make it about that deep. All right. Now we just need our supports to go here. And wait a minute, is this aligned? This should be aligned to this side. It's not quite aligned, but okay. Anyway, now it's time for the supports. So for the supports, we're gonna use a cylinder. There we go. Actually looks good with one support. I don't know. Let's take a look. In our sketch, we had this Y looking support, but I don't know. I mean, this one also looks pretty nice. Definitely looks more simple. Well, let's do two versions and then decide which one we want to use. So I'm going to put this on a layer. All right. So For our original plan, this was more skinny. We could make it 5 millimeters since we've been working with 10 and 5. That's the radius. 0.5. Yeah, I think that's better. $20 maybe. Okay, we're gonna take this height down. We're just doing a sketch for now, and then we'll make this a bit neater later. And we did carry this all the way to there. Then we did another one. So this is in keeping with our sketch. If we take a look here, I would think it's a little in keeping with our sketch. Does it look better? Well, let's see. Let's put this on a new layer here. We call this version 1. All right, so this was the original one. I don't know, I think this simpler version is looking a bit better than this more complex version. I mean, I like it, but now that I'm seeing it in 3D, I don't know, it looks a bit too much. I mean, this whole thing is too much, but I think I'm gonna go with the simpler version. All right, so we got some fins here, and we got the base here. I'm looking at what else I can do. Actually, I'm thinking about editing this part here. I'm thinking about editing this. Select this guy here. I think I'm going to use him. I'm going to select this, and I'm going to... Can I copy it? I don't think I can copy it. I can move it. Yeah, I want to make another edit to one of these again. I'm going to put this on the inside, maybe just like that. Maybe come up a little bit more. There we go. And then I'm going to add yet another subtraction. I hope this polygon can take it. I'm going to have to turn it into a L. Actually, this is looking quite interesting with the space here, but I'm not going to be able to keep that because in here is going to have the housing for the plant. So nah, let's not get any ideas. All right, so we got to cut this into a L. So I'm going to connect. Yeah, I think that's about right. I'm going to make that align like that, and this one I'm going to make align like that. Then I think I need to delete in here. It's good. I need to isolate this so I can fill these holes. Yeah, I wanted this to be lower because I think it looks a bit more interesting, a bit more crazy. Yeah, this is kind of crazy. All right, we got to find back that subtraction. Let's add it to the subtract layer, and let's turn on the subtract layer. Man, we got so many things, so many subtractions, it's crazy. So we can actually edit this. I mean, wow, this is a lot of subtractions. I hope the polygons are managing because I think I'm getting some weird artifacts here. And let's see. Yeah, it's being a little weird here. I think the way how I can fix that is I probably have to edit. I don't want to collapse this shape, but according to the polygons, I mean, it looks like it's working. Yeah, because this is actually inside this piece here. It should be okay. We can always fix it afterwards. I think we're gonna stop there. Actually, no, we need to put in the holes for those window-like elements. We need to add those. So yep, we do have even more subtractions coming up. So this is gonna be pretty random, I think. Let's do one here. Let's do one here. And let's keep it squares, I guess. Do we keep it the same size? I think we should. So at least there's some consistency somewhere on this thing. Okay, we're going to use the align. Hold on, align this here. There we go. All right, so they're kind of like floors, so let's keep them like relatively aligned. So I think this one here aligned with that one, and then we're gonna copy this down maybe, and we're gonna make this one here aligned with that one. All right, now we just need to move them to subtract them. So I think this is about 15 millimeters. So we're gonna go in about 5 millimeters. So 5, and these two here. So this is the x-axis. So we're gonna go -5. There we go. Then I think for simplicity, I think I'm gonna collapse this to an editable poly and add this one, and then do the same for this. Collapse to editable poly and add this one. And then I'm going to add 2 more subtractions, this and this. Wow, there are so many subtractions on this shape here. I don't know, maybe it's too much. I'm wondering if we should add these shapes here, or should they be more vertical or more aligned? I don't know. Let's see. All right, so let's maybe make this a little bit more organized. I think it's a little too crazy. So we're gonna add these 2 guys here to the subtract. Yeah, we have a lot of subtractions happening. Okay, so this one here. I think it's a little better now. Kind of looks like a building, a very, very awkward building, very crazy building, but that's good. We were going for crazy. So now we did make some changes, as we can see here. So it's not exactly, but I think we did pretty well. I think this column definitely works better. Kind of simplifies it a little bit. We tried to keep the opposite side a bit more simple. We did add these elements here. Maybe we should leave out these areas here, but I'm just going to leave it. I promise I'm not going to add anything else, because this is already kind of crazy. All right. Okay, guys, that was a full tutorial covering the concept design and the modeling. Now, if you want to watch the in-depth video on part 2, which is preparing for 3D printing, check out that next video here, or you can check out the link in the description. I'll see you in the next one.